Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
15 Scary Photos of Mother Nature and Her Power. 15. Hurricanes are terrifying. We don't get hurricanes often, but when we do, they're absolutely devastating. Efforts are still being made to help clean up after Hurricane Katrina, and many are still left lost and homeless. When something tragic happens, we often ask why. In times of war and terror, we can pin the damage on human behavior and what society has done to cause criminals to thrive. However, when it comes to natural disasters that we have little control over, we really start to question the world we live in. The image above is a hurricane that was taken in space. You can really get a sense of just how huge something like this is when you get an aerial perspective. What caused this hurricane? Why now? Why here? As much as we try to take care of our world today and be more environmentally friendly, there's always still a chance that a natural disaster will come along and ruin all our hard work. 14. Tsunamis are powerful. Tsunamis are also just as powerful and devastating as the hurricane we've already discussed. If you've ever wondered how to get a boat on top of a building, it looks like a tsunami is your answer. These powerful waves have the ability to destroy lives and ruin towns just like the rest of the natural disasters on the list. Most of the time, they're caused by earthquakes, so you'll often see the two go hand in hand. These natural disasters also have the ability to set off man-made disasters, like triggering a reactor in a nuclear power plant, resulting in the release of radioactive material into the world. There's no telling what devastations these natural disasters have the ability to cause. The fact that we'll never truly be able to predict and prevent these terrible things from happening is sickening and disappointing. No matter what we do or how hard we work, we'll never really know for sure when a natural disaster could take everything we know away from us. 13. Sinkholes happen out of nowhere. Imagine walking along, minding your own business, when out of nowhere, the ground below you completely drops, causing a massive sinkhole. There's something about sinkholes that are completely terrifying. Most of the time, they're caused by loose ground beneath a heavy structure. They're often not as large as the one above, but the fact that a sinkhole so large could just appear out of nowhere, anywhere, anytime is absolutely frightening. You can't even see the bottom of the hole. Who knows what horrors might exist below? How will we ever have a way of gauging when and where a sinkhole might appear? What is the causation? What is the point? These are the questions that are so frustrating when it comes to nature. We have so few answers to so many problems that affect us in this large and scary world. Remember, the next time you're driving down or walking down the street, the ground has the potential of just dropping right below your feet. 12. Space is full of mysteries. When it comes to nature and the scary science behind our world, we sometimes forget about space. It is certainly not an area that we should forget about anytime soon, however. Look at the photograph above that was taken on Mars. It looks as though some sort of figure is sitting on a rock. This image is the only evidence we have of the figure, as we haven't sent a human out there to explore just yet. So little is known about space and how it could affect our lives that really anything is possible when it comes to our galaxy. We think we know what threats might be out there, and we think we can prevent most bad things from happening, but there's always a chance that we could be wrong. The nature of our planet is scary enough, but thinking about what Mother Nature might be up to on the other planets is absolutely horrifying. 11. The ocean is full of dangers. The ocean is a deep and dark place full of mysteries. Sure, the coral reef and the aquatic creatures are mostly beautiful and cool to look at, but it's pretty hard to figure out just how much damage they might cause. Just imagine yourself thrust into the ocean filled with sharks like the photograph above. There's a chance that they'd ignore you and move on to a tastier meal, but it's likely you'd be suffering a pretty big bite if you came face to face with one of these toothy fellows. Much like space, so little of our ocean has been discovered. Who knows if there are terrifying massive monsters swimming below in the deepest layers of the ocean. Even scarier is that non-fish creatures might exist as well. We're basically trapped on land in between two terrifying spaces of nothingness filled with potentially dangerous and terrifying monsters. 10. Lightning is common. Although you might go through your entire life without ever knowing someone who knows someone who knows someone who got struck by lightning, the electric streaks themselves are pretty common. Hey, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than winning the lottery, right? Haven't we all won a couple bucks off of a scratch-off before? The effects that lightning can have on a person are pretty terrifying as well. Even if you survive, it's likely that you'll have a pretty sickening scar the rest of your life. Although there's a low chance of you getting struck by lightning, just the fact that it exists is pretty terrifying itself. We're used to it by now, as it happens all the time, but when you really stop to think about the effects and the process itself, it can be pretty frightening. 9. Floods are too. As kids, you probably imagined your house filling with water so that it would be a cool swimming pool. Even as adults, that actually sounds pretty fun, but not when you think about the damage that can be done. Floods are another common natural disaster that can be way more devastating than you can imagine. Simple flooding in a basement can cause a nightmare for those who have to clean it up. When the water rises above the level of your head, an entirely new disaster emerges. The damage alone is a headache and a nightmare to have to live through, but the potential to have lives lost is much more devastating. Not to mention, anyone who lives in an area with alligators or other harmful water animals could be in danger when these creatures gain access to flailing humans that don't know how to swim and save themselves. 8. Bugs are tiny but horrifying. For something so tiny, bugs shouldn't really be something that humans should be so afraid of. Not everyone has a fear of these tiny creatures, but most people would not call spiders friends of theirs. At any given time, there's likely a spider within close distance to you. Most spiders are harmless and just cause an irritating bite, however, that's not the case for most insects. Many have venoms and poisons that can paralyze and even kill you. Some actually burrow into your skin and could potentially lay eggs. Whoever is responsible for inventing insects is seriously twisted, as these are probably the most terrifying living creatures on our planet today. That's even compared to some of the evilest people in our world. Bugs can range from pesky to life-threatening, and everything in between really makes us question just how beautiful nature really is. 7. Volcanoes are terrifying. Most explosions we hear about in the world are man-made, designed by terrorists and criminals looking to cause disaster. In a world without evil humans, however, the innocent ones still aren't safe from random explosions. Volcanoes are pretty interesting to learn about and are beautiful to watch, but when you really think about it, they can be absolutely terrifying. They're basically these large mountains filled with liquid fire and have the potential to explode at any given time. There are some volcanoes around the world that, if they erupted, would cause a massive amount of damage for hundreds of miles in the surrounding areas. Everyone expects the world to end with some sort of war or other horrible man-made disaster. Who knows when all the volcanoes in the world might be triggered and cause a massive amount of destruction to the millions of lives surrounding them. 6. Earthquakes cause massive damage. One of the natural disasters that could potentially set off a killer volcano is an earthquake. Some areas have never had any recorded earthquakes and might not ever have them. But other areas experience them often and have to bear with the damage caused more frequently than they'd like. Some earthquakes are harmless and only cause minor inconvenience. Other earthquakes cause massive amounts of damage and take the lives of many unsuspecting victims. Unfortunately, there's not a great way to predict when an earthquake might happen, and even if it is predicted, there's really no way to stop it from actually happening. Perhaps, one day, we'll be able to predict all the horrible things that might happen in the world, but who knows if a super earthquake will take us out first. That's the scariest part of Mother Nature, just how unpredictable she really is. 5. We still have dinosaur-like creatures. If something like Jurassic Park ever opened up, many of us would try to be first in line. Being able to see what dinosaurs actually looked like and how they lived would be incredible. But living naturally among them would be absolutely terrifying. They are way bigger than us, have massive teeth and claws, and are unpredictable in their behavior. Unfortunately, there still are many dinosaur-like creatures that live among us today. Just look at the alligators above. There's nothing friendly, cute, or cuddly about these ancient animals. These also aren't the only creatures that look like they're pulled straight from a horror movie. Think of all the weird bugs we've already discussed and many other land and sea creatures that could take us out in one bite. It's amazing to think of all the life that exists on this great green planet, but if you think too hard, you'll likely become pretty terrified. 4. Megadiseases are everywhere. Although man-made illnesses do exist, most of the terrifying diseases that have been known to wipe out massive amounts of people are from nature. Some terrifying illnesses can even be spread by simply breathing. Others require contact with the blood or fluid of an infected person for the sickness to actually transfer. No matter how you might catch a certain disease, however, one thing is for certain, it was at least partially from Mother Nature herself. We have plenty of ways to fight off, prevent, and cure many diseases and illnesses. However, many diseases are building up resistances towards medications, causing super diseases to be on the rise. These illnesses don't require a lab and a team of expert scientists to build immunity to our diseases. It just happens in nature. No matter how many diseases we might be able to fight off and find the cure for, a new one will always emerge. 3. We don't even know all the dangers of the ocean. Like we've already discussed in this article, there are many mysteries that lie below sea level. Take globsters for example. A globster is usually some sort of creature that washes up on the shore. They are always dead, so we assume that these globsters are the remaining bones, fat, and muscles of a once living sea creature. Look at the one above. Many people speculate that it's just the remains of a dolphin and that once its outer layer has been eaten away, this is the result. It's a reasonable speculation, but unless we spend time and money exploring the carcass and running tests, all we have to base our knowledge are our assumptions. Sure, most globsters are likely whales and dolphins that have washed ashore, but how can we ever be really certain we're not looking at a horrifying creature we have yet to discover? 2. Tornadoes are powerful and quick. Tornadoes are basically land hurricanes. They don't have the water around them to help cause destruction, but these cyclones can still do some serious damage. They are another natural disaster that's unpredictable and can happen anytime and almost anywhere. Many areas don't have tornadoes and might never experience the scary cyclone, but other areas are very vulnerable to the terrifying storms. When we look at other planets, they often experience these natural phenomena as well, often on a much larger scale. Who's to say that the horrible things we experience in nature won't get worse? Many planets have hurricanes or tornadoes 24/7, so are we potentially vulnerable to such super disasters in the future? It seems like the destruction we already have to deal with is a bit overwhelming, but what the future might hold in terms of natural disasters is a mystery, and will remain that way. 1. Sometimes, the damage can't be undone. Once a natural disaster hits an area, the damage often can't be undone. Like we've already discussed, we're still, to this day, cleaning up after Hurricane Katrina. Natural disasters aren't the only things we have to worry about when it comes to Mother Nature, however. Our world is also filled with terrifying diseases, creatures, and empty spaces that we have yet to discover. You may think this is a pessimistic view of the world, but it's really just a more realistic one. The planet we live in is still full of beauty and mystery, but for every beautiful thing that exists, there's likely a terrifying threat waiting around the corner. Hopefully, for most of us, we won't have to experience anything too terrifying in our lifetimes. However, for many others, the terrible effects of a natural disaster or a disease have changed or will change their lives forever. What do you think is the scariest part of Mother Nature?